story, circle 1. I'm 21 and I apparently cheated on my boyfriend, 23, because I thought our relationship was over. How do I fix this? So, I'm 21, and I supposedly cheated on my 23-year-old boyfriend because I was convinced our relationship was already done. Like the title says, I'd been with Deck for about a year. We were always going to parties, clubs, hanging out, drinking, that whole lifestyle. At some point, I honestly don't even know when exactly, I just got tired of that party life and everything that came with it. I admit that part of it was because my dad kept whispering in my ear that I needed to take life more seriously. So yeah, I was still living that way, going to college on my parents' dime, and Deck really didn't like that shift. All of a sudden, I wasn't the same girl he had in his head. Around that time, everything started to fall apart. Pretty quickly, we stopped going on dates altogether. He stopped inviting me anywhere, partly because I already had this moral stick in my head judging everything. He kept pulling away, hiding, and emotionally dragging me down. I really should have broken up with him, but I thought I was in love and kept trying to make things work. Then he distanced himself even more. Long story short, he stopped coming over, stopped calling, and basically ghosted me. About 3 months went by, where I didn't see him at all. We didn't have a big fight, no dramatic breakup, nothing. I just assumed that meant it was over between us. So a few weeks after I'd made my peace with that, I met a nice guy. He asked me out, and I said yes. We've now been together for 2 months, and then, out of nowhere, Deck pops back into my life, shows up around my friend group, starts yelling at me, accusing me that my new boyfriend stole his girlfriend, shows everyone an old picture of us, and claims I cheated on him. It wasn't just a quick argument. Before leaving, he also blasted me on Facebook and Instagram, calling me a cheater and writing a bunch of nasty things about me. I honestly felt like I hadn't done anything wrong, until his friend pointed out that I basically just assumed we were broken up without having a clear, direct conversation about it. He gave me a whole speech about how I was in the wrong. Keep in mind, by that point, Deck and I hadn't spoken to each other in months. After all that, people started looking at me differently. I'd never thought of myself as a cheater, but I guess from the outside, that's how it looks. My first boyfriend still hasn't calmed down, and it seems like we're going to have to talk at some point. How am I supposed to fix this? Commentator's note. Outside perspective. Sorry, but if a guy doesn't talk to you for 5 months, I really don't see how he can pretend you're still in a normal, healthy relationship, or in any kind of relationship at all. Update from the original poster. Thank you so much for the support. I've read most of the comments, and I really appreciate them. There are just a few details I forgot to mention. The reason there was no contact is that I was literally begging him to go out and do something together. I went over to his place, tried to plan things, suggested we spend time just the two of us. He never suggested anything himself. I was carrying the relationship on my shoulders, chasing after him like a lost puppy, until I finally got tired of doing all the work. So I decided that if we were actually going to spend time together, he needed to show some initiative too and reach out to me, and he just didn't. That's how we ended up here. I never blocked him. He can contact me anytime he wants. Honestly, if I hadn't met my current boyfriend first, I'd probably have taken Deck back. I was weak, trapped in this idea of love I had in my head, and honestly, a bit naive. Now I'm working on myself. I'm not going back to him. I'm happy with the guy I'm with now. It just really hurts to have this cheater label slapped on me, and to hear people call me that when they don't know the full story. I think that's very unfair. Looking back at my relationship with my first boyfriend, I can see that I was the only one trying to put out the fire, while he did absolutely nothing. Further discussion, chat reactions. What sane person in their right mind thinks, we haven't spoken for months, but we are definitely still together? Yes, technically you shouldn't jump to conclusions if you haven't literally said to each other, we're breaking up. But he didn't talk to her for months. No calls, no messages, no meetups. How are you supposed to believe that everything's fine in a relationship like that? Deck is probably sitting there like, wow, this is great. I'm having the time of my life, doing nothing, taking no responsibility, and still calling it a relationship. I also think she really needs to reevaluate her friend group, because if something like this happened to my friends, I wouldn't blame the girl. I wouldn't say, this is all your fault, when the guy had been ignoring her for months. And on top of that, she met her new boyfriend almost a year after they stopped truly communicating. How can you go nearly a whole year without talking, and still believe the relationship is fine? Please write in the comments. What's the maximum amount of total silence from your partner? No warning, no explanation, that you'd still see as normal? And after how long would you personally consider the relationship over? I'm genuinely curious. Personally, I can't even imagine it. My paranoia would kick in instantly. If someone just stopped messaging and responding completely, my first thought would be that something bad happened, not that we're still officially together. In Deck's case, nothing happened, except that he emotionally checked out and basically bailed on the relationship without having the courage to say it out loud. One more thought about friends and social media. I also think the way his friends act says a lot. If they're on his side, even though he ignored her for months, then honestly, they're not real friends. They're just people who enjoy drama. I genuinely don't understand why you'd go on Facebook and Instagram to post "I was cheated on" when you were the one ignoring your partner for months and had already, in practice, ended the relationship. If I were in her shoes, and he'd ignored me for 3 months, never answered calls or texts, and then painted me as a cheater online, I'd probably also think about writing my own post explaining what actually happened. The OP, however, says she always feels uncomfortable when people air all their dirty laundry on social media, so she doesn't really want to go down that road. But since he's already chosen to do that, maybe she really should at least consider standing up for herself. Story, Seductor 2. Today, I messed up by accidentally sending my nudes to my very nosy parents' house. Today's dumb story, I seriously messed up by accidentally having my nudes delivered to my very nosy parents' house. My boyfriend's birthday is coming up in a few days, so I was putting together a little album for him with my spicy photos. Mostly me in a bra and panties, that kind of thing. I moved out of my parents' place recently, but I never updated the address on my Google account. I went to bed, and then, in the middle of the night, I suddenly woke up with this thought. Oh my God, I think I forgot to change the shipping address. I checked, and of course, I hadn't changed it. I ordered printed photos through Google, and on that service, you can't cancel the order or edit the address if more than 2 hours have passed. And it had already been around 10. Long story short, I'm screwed. My mom is extremely nosy and always grabs my mail and packages first, literally every time I order something. If I don't get to the mailbox in the morning, she pulls everything out and brings it to me. I've asked her so many times to stop doing that, but she never listens. She always comes up with some weird excuse for why she had to open or check it. Now that I live in another state, I can't just drop by and intercept the package myself. So yeah, she's almost definitely going to see my photo book. If I text her and ask her not to open the package because it has my private photos inside, she'll probably start yelling at me for taking pictures of my naked body at all. She thinks Apple, Google, and all the big tech companies are evil. She'll launch into a whole rant about how Google will absolutely upload my photos to random websites, send them to my college, my job, ruin my life. Something dramatic along those lines. She'll probably tell my dad about it too, and then I'll die of embarrassment at every family gathering for the next year. Common sense says that if you're old enough to live on your own, and you're over 18, you have the right to take pictures of your own body. And your parents, in reality, can't do much about it. But that doesn't make this situation any less stressful for me. Comments and advice. I was reading through the comments, and of course people had suggestions like, maybe the simplest solution is just to tell her that opening someone else's mail is illegal, etc. I've thought about that too, but I'm not sure the fight and fallout would be worth it. My relationship with my mom is already a bit rocky. She is extremely against anything related to nudity or sex. If she finds out I take those kinds of photos, she's going to absolutely kill me. One commenter came up with an interesting plan. Since I know the package is on its way, I could message my mom and, ahead of time, remind her that I don't want her opening my mail. If she still opens it after that, then it's 100% on her. At the same time, I could directly ask her whether she plans to keep opening my packages in the future. I really liked that idea. Another commenter suggested a different tactic. When she inevitably opens the package and starts acting shocked and horrified, I could calmly remind her that opening someone else's mail is a federal offense. I liked that one too. I even thought that might be the best possible response if it comes to that. Update from the OP. The OP later posted a short update. Everything turned out fine. She finally fixed her mail settings and redirected all future deliveries to her own address. Unfortunately, or fortunately, all the brilliant plans from the comments never had to be used, but we're still glad for her that it ended well. The next story, apparently, is going to be about how my 30-year-old friend is dating a 25-year-old guy. Sorry? It seems like my 30-years girlfriend, 25F, is about to leave me. I have a feeling she's going to break up with me. I'm honestly panicking right now. I love her very much, and I don't want to lose her. I never imagined things would go this far, especially since we've been together for 3 years. Over the weekend, we decided to grab some food. Before we left the apartment, she offered to pay. But when we got there, I ended up paying myself while she was chatting with some woman in the line. After that, we waited another 10-15 minutes for our order. We were talking, looking around at other shops, and she never once brought up the money or tried to send anything back to me. When we finally got our food, it was on a big tray and still really hot. She suggested leaving it in the car because we still wanted to walk around a bit, and I wanted to grab a drink or some snacks. I said it was fine, I'd carry it. I just wasn't sure how to juggle everything comfortably. She suggested I put my wallet or some small things in my pocket while I carried the tray so I wouldn't drop it. I didn't really want to do that and was already irritated, so I snapped and said something like, "Yeah, whatever. I guess I'll just pay for this and for everything else too." She immediately replied, very coldly, "I'll just transfer you the money." By that point, I was already walking out and heading to the car. When we got to the car, I told her she was selfish. That's when the argument really started. I raised my voice and told her to shut up because I was so angry. She sent me $50, but that still wasn't the full amount I'd paid. Honestly, that just made me even more pissed off. I told her she doesn't appreciate what I do for her. She got upset and started yelling at me while I was still driving. She said she puts about X% of her income toward our shared household expenses, so it's unfair of me to act like I'm the only one who ever pays when we go out. From my perspective, it doesn't matter that much, especially since I earn more. Either way, I'm paying in real dollars, not counting everything in percentages. In any case, I still feel like she's not grateful. Yes, she does say please and thank you, but this time she didn't even thank me after I ordered and paid. She had more than enough time to do it. She just took the food and walked off. Later that same day, she apologized for yelling at me while I was behind the wheel, but I didn't want to talk to her. I told her there was no point because she'd just start shouting again. She said, "All right." Yesterday we barely spoke at all. Only twice, once when the internet went out, and I asked her to fix it, and once when I told her I'd made a pizza, and she could have some if she wanted. She almost didn't look at me and didn't smile even once. This morning I left for work. I didn't really talk to her, except to ask where my charger was. Then I noticed she'd turned off location sharing on her phone. After that, I checked the security camera footage and saw that she'd moved some furniture around, gathered up boxes, packed a suitcase or a bag, something like that. I haven't called or texted her because I honestly don't even know what to say. I never thought one argument would bring us to this point. It feels like she's overreacting and not even trying to understand me. I genuinely have no idea what to do. Narrator's comment. Reaction. First of all, this doesn't really look like it seems she might break up with you. It looks more like she's already decided to leave and is just finishing the mental process of ending the relationship. He's 30. They've been together 4 years. That's not a short amount of time. How have they still not figured out basic financial arrangements if they live together? Especially considering she recently lost her job. She's suggesting splitting expenses based on income percentages, which honestly is quite fair. If one partner earns less, it doesn't make sense to expect them to contribute the same amount of money as the partner who earns more. That applies to any relationship. That line of his, "I think I'll just pay for this and for everything else," sounds really passive-aggressive for a 30-year-old man who should already know how to communicate his frustrations directly. She did say she would pay. He could have just calmly reminded her at home, "Hey, you said you'd cover this one. Could you send me the money, please?" Instead, he kept quiet, stewed in his resentment, collected his grievances in his head, and then exploded in the form of a fight. It's a very strange reason for such a serious conflict. In healthy relationships, people often take turns paying. For example, he pays for dinner today, she pays for drinks next time, or covers something else later. Extra context from the OP. In the comments. The OP writes that ever since she lost her job last month, she's been saving every cent, and things have become quite tense because of that. So on top of everything, she's unemployed, and he chooses this moment to nitpick over $50 instead of supporting her. He also talks about her birthday. For her birthday, he booked a table at a restaurant. After she got home from work, he gave her an hour to get ready, and they went out. Then he describes how, for his birthday, she supposedly messed it up. She suggested a barbecue-style get-together at home, didn't buy a gift, didn't write a card, and he spent most of the time grilling the meat. From the way he tells it, it sounds like she did nothing, although in reality, she most likely also did a bunch of things: shopping for groceries, helping with prep, cleaning up, setting the table. He just counts only what he does and completely dismisses her contribution. It comes across as if he criticizes her more than he appreciates her, and is constantly looking for reasons to find fault with her, whether it's about money or how she organizes celebrations. Story 4. From a subscriber. Am I a bad person because my friend cheated on her boyfriend with my other friend and her boyfriend? This next story is from a subscriber. Thank you so much for trusting me and sending your stories. I really appreciate it. So, the question is, am I a bad person because my friend cheated on her boyfriend with my other friend and her boyfriend? It sounds weird, and honestly, pretty confusing. It happened on my 18th birthday. I invited a small group of people I'm close to, 3 girlfriends, let's call them Stace, Martha, and Adele, and my friend Tom. At first, everything was fine. We were drinking, dancing, then decided to go for a walk around the neighborhood. At some point, we ended up going back to Stace's place because she had her own apartment. That's where things started to go off the rails. Stace and Martha began jokingly flirting with Tom, sitting on his lap, bending over in front of him, shaking their butts for him. I knew Tom wasn't enjoying any of it. Then, for better or worse, Martha's boyfriend showed up and joined us. She suggested they all have some fun, the 4 of us. She and Stace grabbed Martha's boyfriend and dragged him into the bedroom. I tried to stop Stace, but she wouldn't listen. She basically just shut me out. And to be honest, this wasn't the first time. She often went after other people's men, loved the attention, especially when she was drunk. She'd rub up against random guys at bars, send very explicit photos to coworkers. I just hope she never sent anything like that to her parents by mistake. With one of those guys, she once went to an anti-cafe, one of those places with lots of couches and dim lighting. She did something with him there, but never really told the full story. I was sitting in the living room with Tom, and we were both in total shock. We could clearly hear everything that was happening in the bedroom. At some point, we just decided to leave the apartment altogether. Later, Stace's boyfriend started texting me. Overall, we'd always had a pretty good relationship. We got along fine. I felt horrible because I couldn't bring myself to just bluntly say, "She's cheating on you right now." Of course, everything became obvious as soon as he came over to the apartment. He immediately decided it was my fault because I was the one who organized this wild party. And then, he forgave her. Narrator's comment. Reaction. First of all, you are not a bad person. You can't control other people's actions. I honestly have no idea what kind of hold this girl has over her boyfriend. If he can walk into an apartment, realize his girlfriend is in the middle of a group sex situation, and still forgive her afterward. It's like she cast some kind of spell on him. That's the only way my brain can process it. I can just picture it. He walks in, hears what's going on, sees her, and she's like, "Babe, it's not what it looks like." And instead of saying, "Pack your stuff, we're done," he somehow stays and then forgives her. None of that is on you. You are not responsible for what grown adults choose to do behind closed doors, especially when you tried to step in and they ignored you. I'd also say, don't waste energy on Stace's boyfriend either, the one who blamed you for the whole thing. And on top of that, you're still very young. Chances are, over time you'll all drift apart anyway and move on from each other. But one thing is already crystal clear. You don't need to stay in a social circle where this kind of behavior is treated as normal, and you definitely don't need to carry the guilt for someone else's cheating. Story, Dr. Faye. The bartender laughed at my drink order. I was at a pub with my 14-year-old son. We were watching a football match there in the evening. I don't really drink much in general, but on weekends, I like to treat myself to a cocktail. A waitress came over and asked if we wanted anything to drink. I ordered a piña colada, and she kind of chuckled at my choice. Not in a super mean way, but clearly enough that I noticed. Then she walked off to make it. It bothered me a bit. I'm just a grown man who wants a tasty cocktail. What's so wrong with that? When she brought the drink over, I decided to have a little harmless revenge. As she set the glass down on the table, I looked at her and said, "My mom used to love this drink. God rest her soul. I always order it on the anniversary of her death to remember her." She instantly looked horrified and awkward, clearly flustered, and tried to get away as fast as possible. Then I asked if I could please have a straw for the cocktail, so she had to come back again. When she returned, I took a slow sip, raised my hand, and pointed up toward the sky, trying my best to look deeply sad and emotional. The whole situation was so painfully awkward that I almost burst out laughing and had to hold it in. After that, she didn't come near our table again, and honestly, that's fair. You shouldn't mock people for what they like to drink. Men are allowed to enjoy pretty, fruity cocktails, with little umbrellas too. Comments. One commenter joked, "Wait, Dad, Grandma died? I thought we took her to the farm so she could play with the others." Someone else shared a story about their pet turtle. Their parents told them they'd taken it to a special turtle sanctuary where it could play with other turtles. Only many years later did they find out there was no sanctuary at all. The parents had just gotten rid of it. Another commenter wrote about his younger brother. "He's huge, covered in tattoos, looks like a sailor, and can seem really intimidating. But he absolutely loves cocktails. A few years back, he took the commenter out. They had a great meal, then sat at the bar. There was a seasonal cocktail with a long, complicated name the commenter couldn't even pronounce, but it tasted amazing. The morale in all these stories is the same. Life is way too short to be embarrassed about liking cocktails. Enjoy your drinks, people. If you want a cocktail, order a cocktail. Most of the time, they're genuinely delicious. Personally, I usually go for either very strong or very sour cocktails. But if you're into sweet dessert-style drinks, that's perfectly fine too. Life is short. Drink what actually makes you happy. Story number 6. Today, I messed up by having an intimate encounter with a medium. Today's story. I really messed up by having intimate relations with a medium. Last night, I, 28 managed to convince a nice 25-year-old woman to come back to my place. For a first date, I'd say things were going pretty well. Well, almost a proper date. As soon as we were alone in my bedroom and things started to heat up, she suddenly froze and asked, "Do you feel anyone else here with us?" We were literally in bed with our legs bare, mid-moment, and I had no idea what she meant at first. She asked again, this time completely serious. She actually made me stop what I was doing so I could tune in, as she put it. Then she explained that she has a sixth sense and that she's a medium. I'd heard something vague about that before, but we had never discussed it in detail. When she asked about it, I told her my grandmother had passed away recently. She nodded and said she could feel my grandmother's presence in the room. I told her I don't believe in ghosts. She replied that my grandmother had supposedly come through to deliver an important message for me. Against my better judgment, I let myself get pulled into a conversation about my dead grandmother in the middle of what was supposed to be sex. Unfortunately, that didn't stop her from saying that my grandmother wanted me to forgive my brother. At that point, my brain completely stalled. I stopped and asked her what she meant. The thing is, my brother slept with my then-girlfriend, who is now my ex. After that, I cut him off, and our relationship pretty much ended. I have never gone into detail about this with anyone, let alone with a woman I'd just started seeing. Yet somehow she knew. When I asked how she knew that, she said it was a message from my grandmother. She even knew my grandmother's name, another detail I had never shared with her. As my skepticism started to wobble a bit, I stupidly asked if my grandmother could see what we were doing right now. She calmly answered, "Yes." And just like that, my brain hit the emergency stop button on my erection. In that moment, sex became physically impossible for me. The idea that my ghost grandma was not only watching me during sex, but also silently judging my choice of partner, completely killed the mood. To put it gently, every trace of intimacy evaporated. In the end, instead of thinking about sex, I spent a long time replaying everything and wondering if this all sounds like some bad joke. But for me, in that moment, it felt disturbingly real and honestly terrifying. Narrator's comment, reaction. I don't believe in ghosts, but if all of this really happened, it has to be one of the most brutal mood killers imaginable. Somewhere under a similar story, someone once joked with a grandma message line like, "Your brother paid her to sleep with you. Cut him out of your life completely." And honestly, that sounded almost as insane as the whole medium situation in this story. Thank you so much for watching. I'm counting on your subscription, likes, and comments. All the best, and take care of yourselves.